Step in. Okay, we're good.
Okay. Welcome. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. This is a special board meeting where we will be one item of business. Paul, can you call the roll, please?
Okay, we have Karen Gilmore, Steve Burke, Margie Cassia, Pat Kepke, Daniel Monks present, so we have a full quorum, and notice was posted in accordance with Florida statute.
All right, so by way of explanation here, I will introduce this item to the community and we can talk. So, as you all know, back in January, a call went out for was a solicitation to get residents who were interested in running for the board. You know, is later this month, actually late next month, about a month from now. And we had 2 seats on the board that were going to be opening up. Both of these board members had said that they were running again for their seats. And a third resident put forth his name. So we actually had 3 residents standing up to run for the board. February 10th, one of the current board members came to me and said that he wanted to resign, made a decision to resign. This is Brian Coleman. He said that he had been hasty in his assumption of his responsibility. It was taking a lot of time. He had been working, came right from work, he retired, actually retired while he was on the board. Moved down here. He lives most of the year in Virginia, I guess, and just felt that he had been premature in accepting his responsibility. So he wanted to resign. So we said, okay, send us a letter, talk to Paul about this, talk to the board about it. To me, at the time, it seemed like we had 3 guys running for the board, we had 3 openings on the board. So I was kind of hoping that we could just appoint the 3 candidates. One of the board members mentioned to me that he was concerned that one of the seats had a 2-year term attached to it because it was a vacated seat, and that 2 of the seats were full-term 3-year seats. He wanted to, it was a question of fairness, who was going to get the 2-year seat. In point of fact, after discussion, I asked Paul about this. Paul talked to the attorney. The attorney tells us that since the vacated seat is not electable, no election can be held for it, it needs to be appointed. That this was going to be the 2-year seat, and that the other 2 seats would be the seats currently held by, or at that time held by Nathaniel and by Matt Barker, would be the 3-year seats. These would be the re-elected seats. So this 2-year versus 3-year thing was really the impetus of going to the attorney in the first place and saying, what do we do? He said that we should get Matt to resign, to withdraw his candidacy, to appoint him to this vacated seat from the resigned board member, and then to have the 2 full-term seats available for appointment of the 2 other candidates who were running for it. Since there were only 3 people who had declared for the board, this seemed like a pretty good solution. So Matt resigned from his seat on the board as of Monday, withdrew his application to run for the board this year. And it is our intention today in this board meeting to appoint a candidate for that vacancy. After this is done, at the annual board meeting, next month. The other two candidates, could be Joe Mulcahy and Nathaniel Owens, would be appointed to full-term 3-year seats. There would not be an election because there's an equal number of candidates and seats available. It is not this. I'm going to reiterate this. This vacant seat that was vacated by resignation is not available for election. So the question then becomes, who do we pick to put in the board seat that's been vacated? Since Matt volunteered to take a 2-year seat, so I'm not going to fight about 3-year versus 2-year. He seemed like the obvious choice to some of us. I think others of us have different ideas. I think that this is an opportunity for the board to select a person to run in that seat, to fill that seat. And I think that I'll make a motion to appoint Matt Barger to the vacated seat that Brian Coleman vacated when he resigned. And we will now, I'll ask for a second.
I'd like to second the motion.
Okay, now, please some board member comment on this.
Yes, definitely. Why do we have elections? What's the point of having an election? The reason we have an election for board candidates is so the owners can express who they want on the board. Admittedly, in Pelican Marsh, sometimes they care a lot, sometimes they don't care at all. Sometimes almost nobody will run, and sometimes the room is full of people mad, happy, wanting to have their voice on an election. Sometimes we have election with huge turnout, and other times we're trying to please get you to send in your proxy vote. It's your right. As an owner, it's your right to vote or not vote. But that's why we have elections. Now let me explain what the whole point of what we're doing here. I want to encourage the board to not vote to appoint my friend Matt Barger to the seat vacated by Brian Coleman. It has nothing to do with Matt Barger. Matt is a smart and good person. What is not good is this convoluted scheme. I'm going to explain to you what happened. A little over a week ago, Brian said he's resigning from the board with 2 years left on his term. He's got 2 years left on his term. These are 3-year terms. Meanwhile, at the same time, both Matt and me, we served our 3-year term, and our term is up for election. 3 people were in the election for those 2 seats. Joe Mulcahy, me, and Matt Barger all signed up, so there's supposed to be an election next month with 3 people. This is where the owners get to have their voice and choose who they want on the board. Sometimes, just like when you vote for president or Congress, you don't even know who you're voting. You don't even vote for judge. I don't know who it is. Sometimes you're really mad, and you really care, and you want to vote somebody out of office, or you want to vote this new woman into office, whatever it is you want to do, and that's your right. What some people have come up with is a way to subvert the election process by having Matt, who's just about to get an election held for his seat that he just served 3 years on, and have him resign from his seat for a few hours, and then put him in the seat that just got emptied by Brian Coleman, who has 2 more years left on his term. Now, suddenly, the guy who's getting ready to be facing the owners for their yes, no, and now he suddenly is the first person in Pelican Marsh history to have a 5-year term without an election. Never happened before. This is crazy. Some people think this is a good idea. I disagree. It's the lawyer. Someone asked the lawyer, is this legal? Turns out, yeah, technically this is legal. A lot of bad ideas are technically legal, and we keep finding them on this board. We need to follow the rules in the same manner they've been followed for nearly 30 years. Every time there's been an empty seat or someone resigned off the board, every single time it's happened the exact same way. Someone resigns, the board finds someone and nominates them and puts them on the board. The board doesn't find somebody on the board to get off the board and take that other seat so they can be on the board longer and not have to have an election. That's wrong. That stinks. In fact, I'll tell you the word stinks. I personally talked to 20 people about this, including, hear me, 4 former presidents of this foundation. And all 20 of them, with the exception of one person, almost instantly came up with, on their own, a synonym of the word stinks. It was crazy. After about the 5th time I started writing it down, they said, that is smelly, that's rotten, that's foul, stinks to high heaven, then stinks, 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 several said stinks. And then my personal favorite was that's Limburger cheese. There's nobody that said, oh, that sounds like a normal idea to me. No one thinks this is normal. This is a power grab. This is subverting your right to vote. I'm against it. However, lucky for you, lucky for me, there is a volunteer. We're acting like that there's nobody possible out of the 4,500 people here that could serve on that empty seat, except somebody on the board. It was like, can't find you guys. Someone has volunteered that is far more qualified resume than we're used to having on this board. She was a director of a $100 billion company in Massachusetts. She had her own business for 23 years. She understands money. She understands people. She volunteers to advise the board, both personally and on committees. And so to solve this problem, I'm going to ask her to solve this problem. I ask the board to consider nominating. I nominate Melinda Reed to fill this.
So I nominate the motion that Nathaniel, because there's a motion on the floor.
Well, whenever you're trying to find someone to fill a seat, you should take all the nominees available. This is not like we're passing a bylaw. We're trying to get some nominees. I'm happy to have many nominees. There's not just one nominee. Why would there just be one nominee?
Right, but we can't rewrite all the rules because you don't like.
Find me a rule. Okay, I've got the rules. Find me a rule that where we're supposed to have one nominee at a time. Oh, yes, right. There is no rule.
It also doesn't say that we can get aside from Robert's rules and say we're not going to have motions. We're going to do things completely differently. If you wanted to do this.
We want to do this. Every meeting that we've ever had, I am vice president and treasurer. Every meeting we ever have, we have an executive committee meeting before the board meeting to decide what is on the agenda. We didn't have one this time. You know why? Because I would have to be there. I didn't have a chance to talk about this ahead of time.
Did you lose my phone number?
No, I don't lose your. Did you lose my phone number before you did this? No,
I
this is.
sent you a letter. I sent everybody a letter.
Right.
I told you exactly in that letter, and I'm happy to read the
Yeah,
letter.
you,
But I told you exactly
Excuse
in
me,
the letter.
excuse
He
me,
had already
excuse me,
resigned.
excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
There are 3 positions open on the board.
I would disagree.
You think there are 2 positions?
There is 2 positions that are already past the deadline for people to be elected to them, and now we have a new empty seat. And that is a separate issue from the election. Steve is trying to convolute them so that they're somehow, these 2 things and this one thing are now paired. They're all a group. They're not a group. There's not a group of 3 empty seats. There's 2 seats that are up for normal election like they have always been on the date that they're up for. Then a different seat has been opened by Brian. That has nothing to do with this election or the people in the election or the people on the board. So I would say no. I would say there is not a set of 3 anything.
Well, the fact is that one person who was not on the board put their hat in the ring to come on the board.
Yes.
Joe.
I agree.
And before Brian's resignation, it was just an easy appointment of whoever wanted to be back on the board, Matthew and Joe. So what you're saying now is.
I guess I don't understand that last sentence. You said before Brian quit, it was an election with 3 people in it, and what would be easy?
Well, we didn't have to hold an election because Joe wanted to be on the board and take a new position on the board.
You mean we did have to hold the election? Yeah, that's true. It's true. We had to hold an election because we had 3 people. When there's more people than seats, we hold an election.
Well, but now we now have more people than seats. We have more seats than people because the resignation, correct?
No, the resignation is unrelated to the election. There's no correlation between the election and Brian's empty seat.
All right, so
We should not,
that's-
they're not related in any way.
And that's the point you're trying to make.
Yes, yes. If you read our bylaws or follow the last 25 years of practice, there's never been a mixing of the elections and empty seats resigned from. There's no correlation. These are unrelated items.
So we had, 3 people volunteer to run for the board.
Right,
If there was someone else who wanted to run for the board, one assumes they would have volunteered to run for the board at that time.
right.
What you're saying is we should, on principle, not take one of the people who volunteered to run for the board for this vacated seat, but take someone who didn't run for the board.
I say that we should do the same thing that's always been done since Philip Morris existed, is that when people were running for the board, they had an election. When people resigned from a seat, then we had volunteers and we nominate the volunteers and the board chooses which volunteer they
This
want.
entire thing happened because of a conversation you and I had about the 2-year versus 3-year problem. Where I said to you, we've got 3 guys, we've got 3 openings, this should be pretty easy. And you said, I'm concerned because 2 of the spots have 3 years and 1 spot has 2 years.
I did not.
I don't want to see Joe Mulcahy get the 2-year spot.
No, I have never said that.
That's exactly.
Joe Mulcahy, I said Joe Mulcahy wants to run for a full term on the board.
That's not what you said.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay.
And it might sound like we might be splitting hairs. We might be actually agreeing on this, but it's true. Joe Mulcahy wanted to run for a full term on the board. So let's agree that me and Joe Mulcahy both believe that Joe Mulcahy wants to run for the full term on the board.
What I agree to is that the whole thing started because of the 2-year versus 3-year thing. And when I talked to Paul about this, I talked to Matt about it. I said, listen, Nathaniel's concerned about 2 years versus 3 years. And Matt said, I'll take 2 years out of here. Fine. So the problem was solved, except the attorney said, no, the problem isn't solved because you cannot just slide into this vacated seat. You need to be appointed by the board.
Right.
in this vacated seat.
Right. That's my opinion is unethical for us to appoint a person to get around
Yeah,
it.
but that's you think it's unethical.
Yes.
Nobody else on the planet thinks it's unethical. It's not unethical.
Okay.
Matter of fact, when we talked to the lawyer about this, the lawyer said this is the only way to make it legal.
The only way to make it legal to put Matt back on the board, to put Matt back on the board and not have election. Yeah, that's the only way to make it. But that's not should be our goal. Our goal should be to have business in the normal standard way. Our goal should not be to find a way to keep Matt on the board.
So this has nothing to do with you favoring one candidate over another.
I favor normal business. This is the way that it's always been done.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with you favoring.
Oh, I definitely favor, if I were to pick between Joe and Matt, I would want Joe to win. If I pick between me and Matt, I want me to win.
I'm talking, Joe and Matt are not an issue. Matt is not running for the board.
Right. I explained that. I
Joe
agree.
is running for the board.
Right.
You are running for the board.
Right. I agree.
There are 2 seats available for people who are running for the board, therefore there will be no election, you will be appointed.
Right, I
The
agree.
question here today is who is going to be appointed by the board to the vacated seat from Brian? And the answer you have is, I'd like to suggest somebody else.
Right.
So therefore you
I
favor
suggest-
another candidate.
Oh,
Matt,
you mean,
exactly right.
I favor a different person for this seat than Matt.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why I'm nominating a different person. I think the only person that is unethical for us to put on that seat is Matt. The other 4,500 people we picked from this community are fine, but it would be unethical for us to put Matt on the board.
No.
Right at the end of
It
his
is
term.
unethical, but it isn't unethical, and the lawyer says it's not unethical, but you.
Lawyers are the wrong people to ask what's unethical. They tell you what's legal.
Okay.
Lawyers are the wrong people to ask what is unethical. They tell you what is legal.
I take umbrage, and I think you
Yes.
need to retract.
I don't retract it. Lawyers don't tell you what's ethical. They tell you what's legal.
Your
You're a minister.
generalizations are outrageous.
You're a
I am
minister.
tired of you expanding on our character and our understanding. No, this is terrible, Jim. This is terrible. This is terrible.
Is there
Absolutely
another board member? who
uncivilized.
Has anything to say? Excuse me, you'll have an opportunity. Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter.
I take umbrage and offense at a fellow board member besmirching my character and my name. And I'm really, really tired of it getting away with it.
Is there another board member who would like to say something? Pat?
I move we now,
We can't move. We have a motion on the floor, Pat.
I would like us to reconsider appointing a replacement for Brian Poland to explore possibly other candidates who did not know about this, who would now take from 17 elections.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Thank you.
In point of fact, the board decides who they're going to appoint to these vacancies. The people don't know about it. It has nothing to do with it. It's all about the board. This is what the bylaws say. This is the way this is. So let me just tell you what the bylaws say. Bylaws say that when there is a vacancy on the board will appoint its replacement. There's no, it's not like soliciting applications to run for the board. It's a completely different process. It's an internal board matter. This is how it's always been done. This is how the bylaws are written. If you don't like it, then change the bylaws.
I move that we withdraw the nomination.
You cannot move. There's a motion on the floor.
But I can, point of order, I can move that we close that motion on the
No,
floor.
you can't. We have to vote on the motion. And the motion is voted down.
No, we can withdraw the motion. And I move we withdraw the motion.
You're out of order. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak? Yes. And could you just say your name and your neighborhood?
Oh, is there people online?
I'm Leanne Stevens from Claremont, and I would first request that you don't put me on.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Raising the volume louder doesn't change the voice. And the second thing I would like to say is that what you're arguing about right now is, can we just, we've already kind of talked about this, we pick one person to nominate for this, and you're arguing that we should allow the opportunity for there to be more people. And from listening to this, it seems to me that perhaps your motion is made a little prematurely, and perhaps you're not threatened by the fact that more people could be considered. So perhaps you could withdraw that motion. Perhaps you could consider an additional person or people. And the reality is, in looking at this board, I have a feeling that the votes are going to be 3-2 anyway. I might be wrong about that, but it seems to me that all this arguing is just raising everybody's blood pressure, and it's going to have the same outcome. Whether everybody up here wants that outcome or not doesn't matter, because you guys have the votes. We like you have the votes. So it seems to me that there's no threat in withdrawing that motion for the time being and considering multiple candidates and then voting, because you all pretty much know who you want anyway.
Yes.
Would the dispute be solved if Matt agreed to be on board for a total of 5 years?
No, I don't think so. No. Oh, no. Yes.
What's to prevent you from running up to the homeowners meeting with a board as it exists about filling that vacancy and then scheduling a special election?
Well, because the bylaws are written in a certain way. Like the No, it's not a may. There is no provision, according to the attorney's interpretation of our bylaws, no provision for electing the replacement to a resigned seat. So we have a person who has resigned. We have an open seat. The board's responsibility is to appoint someone to that seat. There really isn't anything else in the bylaws about this.
But it seems that this will allow board members to resign, reappoint.
Forever.
So I guess my question is, if that were to happen, so what you're saying is that, again, let's say next year we get to a point, some other board member is going to resign their seat on the board, so somebody else can resign and be appointed. Do you think that's credible?
I think it's we're getting into a very political situation. This is not just a not-for-profit corporation anymore. We're turning into this Trump versus Biden kind of thing. It's really
Well, nobody's more annoyed than I am, believe me. But I will tell you that if you want to change the process, you must change the law. This is the way it works. And I'm sorry if you don't like it, but that's the way it works. So if you guys want a different bylaw, then
That's not true. We use the same bylaw we've used for the last 25 years. Whenever an empty seat from someone being resigned or removed from the board, if there's an empty seat, the board finds nominees and then chooses one. We've never ever chosen one that was on the board before.
That's true.
Right, and never has anybody been able to subvert the election by skipping their election.
No subversion going
Yes,
on.
it is
What do you
subversion.
think?
You know the irony here? The irony is that we, the board, did this, Matt did this as a favor to Joe and to me. Because he said, I'll take the 2-year thing because this is important to Joe and to Nathaniel to serve 3 years. And I don't think I'm so aghast at the way I get responded to, but I'm gonna keep going. The irony is that Matt thought he was doing this, but he made a solid, and here we are.
Yes, Rich.
Make us feel that we're being represented. I've come to every meeting for about a year, and I've seen strife and fighting, and the people here are in alignment with you on those things. And I say the board, but there are certain people who know on the board have certain alignment that is disaligned with this group. We saw that in the process.
Can I ask you a question before you go on?
Which was a 75 to 25 lack of support for you guys. Okay, now, I don't know who all that lack of support is, but as a group, you don't can be represented. So the only time we have to get representation is to vote, and we can only vote against people. So when you take someone and say, resign, I'll reappoint you, and you can serve 5 years, that is unethical. I worked hard to get you elected, but now I see this power grab taking place, and I don't like it.
So, well, thank you for your comment. I will say that this idea of 5 years of unelected, this is nonsense. I mean, I know that Neil said this in his statements. And it's crazy. Matt Barker was elected with Nathaniel for a 3-year term. He won an election against 2 other guys. This isn't 5 years of unelected. This is awful. So he has served his term, and he has agreed to resign so that he can be appointed to the board. Now, this is again, the way the bylaw is written and the way it has always been done in this community is the board decides. The board decides who is going to be appointed to this spot. Sadly, or however you want to look at it, the community doesn't have a voice in this particular appointment. The community has a voice in voting for the board members. And should you decide that you don't like the board members, you can replace them.
That's why.
And I think, excuse me. Thank you. So what we're faced with today is a board function. Now, you have input, but this is a board function. This isn't an election. It's an appointment, and it's done by a majority of the board. Now, you don't like the way this looks. I thought it was, when I first looked at it, I thought, oh, why are we doing it this way? And the answer was because this is what the lawyer says we have to do. Now, you can agree or disagree, but, and I know plenty of you disagree, but I think that we, as far as what we have to do here today, our hands are tied in terms of how this is to be done. Now, in terms of Leanne Stevens's suggestion that I withdraw the motion that is on the floor right now, I'm okay doing that. I mean, I think that it's a reasonable thing to do. And so I hereby withdraw this motion.
I second.
And now I will say to you that the board, after, what we're going to do now is we're going to move into a phase where we're going to have some new motions. So I'm going to ask you to hold your comments until we have the point in time when the audience can comment on the motion that's on the floor, if they so choose.
Steve, if I could just take a moment, this is for myself to summarize what's going on. Make sure I got this. I was actually appointed to the board prior to being elected to the board, so I understand that situation. I don't know what the process was. because I wasn't on the board. But I was chosen to be appointed to the board and then ran and I was elected. So just so you know, I know that has happened. What I'm hearing is, if I am correct, is that the community is concerned, not because the board has made an appointment, but because a board member resigned and then was selected to be appointed. Is that the issue? Is that what I'm hearing? And so you're thinking that somehow something nefarious is going on, that somehow this is, I've heard things thrown around, this is a power grab, this is whatever, right? Is that what I'm hearing from those of you who were present and upset? That's part of it.
Imagine he resigned, he would have gotten reelected.
You would have.
He would have had to run, but he was running on a post, so.
No,
now all of a sudden-
I don't think you quite get what's going on here. This, well, some of you do, clearly. Okay, one more time. There are 2 seats available for full terms here on the board as of the annual meeting next month. Those seats will be filled by appointment, be it with Nathaniel Monks and Joe Mulcahy. And there is a 3rd seat that has been vacated by a resignation. Unfortunately timed, but what are you going to do? So this guy resigns, tells us he doesn't want to do it anymore. We understand, it's fine. So now the board's job is to appoint a successor. I will entertain motions from the board.
I move that we accept volunteers for this empty seat. We have I move that we accept that the board.
So you want to establish a new process?
No, I move that the board request volunteers that would like to be considered for this empty seat, so the board can consider them. The board gets to choose who goes in the empty seat. We would like to be able to consider people. So
When you say we, who are you talking?
the board would like, you said
You're
the
speaking
board,
for the board.
no, you said the board chooses someone to fill the seat.
Yeah.
And so I'm agreeing with you, and I said the board would like to know what people are available to fill the seat with.
Well, you would like to know. So
You don't wanna know?
We already have a candidate.
No, we haven't. Well, okay, we have a candidate that is the only candidate that we should not appoint.
According to you.
According to me. And so I'm requesting that we consider other candidates also to see what might else be available. Is there anything wrong with knowing?
I am not going to open up this meeting to people volunteering to run for board seat.
No, not
What
one
I
of
will
them.
do is I will entertain a motion from another board member for an alternate to the candidate that I mentioned in my motion.
Sounds good. I motion that we consider Melinda Reed to fill the empty seat vacated by Brian Coleman.
I second. Motion on the floor that has been seconded. And now we will have board member comments. I will start. So I think that from my perspective, I've got a guy, Matt Parker, who has been on the board for 3 years. He's has broad experience in a variety of issues that we're going to have facing us over the next year or so in terms of infrastructure development and coding and building and construction and all of this. And he's a guy who has demonstrated an interest in running for the board because he declared to run for the board when we asked for candidates. Only 3 people stepped up. So I believe that he is the best person for the job. I believe this. And therefore, I'm personally not willing to look at someone else who doesn't have these qualifications, who doesn't have the board experience, who doesn't have the occupational experience, and who hasn't demonstrated the interest in running for the board. Are there any other board members who have comments?
I'd like to correct one thing you did say just now. You said that no one else has expressed an interest in running for the board. We're not requesting anybody run for the board. So Joe Mulcahy was the only person who was willing to run in an election against an opposed seat. my seat and Matt's seat. But what we're looking for here today is something completely different. We're asking for a person to be appointed to a seat, which is very different than to run in a post-election.
Yeah, I reject that completely. That's just words. And then basically what I'm saying here is that people who want to serve the community stand up and run for the board. This is your opportunity to do it. 3 guys did it. So great. Those are the 3 guys who should be on the board in my view. No audience right now. Any other board members have anything to say on this issue?
I think Matt has over and over demonstrated his interest in serving this community without theatrics, without a lot of attention seeking. He not only did work on the board the last 3 years, but he did a lot of committee work to make sure that Bocce happened. And he's thrown his whole self into figuring out this restaurant amenity. I believe he filed for a position with this board in a timely manner, showing interest that he'd like to continue.
Anybody else on the board?
Matt is a very good person, and I agree that Matt is a wonderful person, and he's a good volunteer. And we thank God for Matt.
As long as no crowd, below 4 people out, or you're not going to speak every month. Wow, she's showing us to the election. That's 6 times.
I can hear it.
If the board elects to do so, they may appoint. You're saying it says must appoint. There's no time frame. You can continue as a board, as long as you not draw a local quorum. You pass that to the solution. They'll allow you to have an election. You have 6 people on your board. At that time, you can then address the situation as a new board, decide who is the best candidate to be placed in that position.
I'm just going to respond to that. So what you're advocating is that we put an even number of people on the board to make a decision like this. And I'm here to tell you that first of all, there's nothing in the bylaws that says you have to do this right away. There's also nothing that says you're compelled to wait until you have an election. It is entirely up to the discretion of the majority of the board. So, but putting an even number of people on the board means that you're likely, or at least it's possible, that you're going to have sort of a split decision. You're going to be unable to make any progress on this. But thank you for your comment. Next, Angela. Yes, 5. That's not.
Can I give you some history?
Jerry Carbone.
The past scenario on Mr. Rhodes is we usually waited for the general election. There were times when the general election had more applicants than seats open. Okay? There was a lot of elections that did not have enough candidates. I would suggest that the position you're in now, first of all, is about time. The lawyer is telling you what the rules are that you can obey by. The scenario here that we're discussing is time, a very short time frame. Guy resigned Monday, he's re-elected Tuesday. Doesn't look right. Why can't you just wait until the general election? Between now and the general election, you could advise the members, everybody that's here that has a vote, that you're gonna have some vacancies, okay, that are gonna be over and above the elected offices. You might get 1 more candidate, you might get 2 more candidates, 3 more candidates. Then when you have a new board, okay, granted that you might argue with 3 and 3 or 4 and 2, whatever it's going to have to be, at least you're going to do it in an open forum. That's what we used to do in the past. Okay, and that's why there was never an argument about that. You have the authority to elect and nominate. There's no question about that. It's a function of how you go about doing it. And you can see everybody here is unhappy.
Yeah.
Okay? Why don't you take an easy way out? Take the rest of the afternoon off, think about it.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience?
Why did Matt resign?
Who? Why did Matt? Because we asked him to. Sure.
Tell them why.
Because the lawyer said to us that we had this situation where we had 3 guys who had declared their candidacy for the board. We had an election coming. We had 3 guys for 2 spaces. We were going to have your standard election where the community votes on the 3 candidates. We have a candidate forum. We have all the stuff. Then, after the deadline passed for the registration for running for the board, one of our board members notified us that he was resigning. So now we have a vacancy on the board. So now we have 3 spots on the board that are not going to be filled. And we have 3 candidates. So we thought, okay, good, we got 3 guys who are interested in running. They've demonstrated their interest. Let's just put them in the spots. Who's going to go where? Who's going to get the 2-year? Who's going to get the 3-year? So we had a conversation at the board level about fairness. Who's going to get stuck with the 2-year term? And Matt Barger said, I'll take the 2-year term. So this is after he served his 3-year term that he was elected to. So he volunteered to resign from the board. He volunteered to withdraw his candidacy for election so that he could help us out. When I say us, I mean the board and the community. Because at the end of the day, this is a service position that we are all working hard at on your behalf. Nobody here is trying for world domination. So, to answer your question, this became the obvious choice. Once the attorney looked at this thing and said, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to do, nothing else. So we're doing it. I'm sorry, this guy is asking a question.
You keep referring to the attorney. He doesn't run our vote.
Yes. What people are saying is that they do not like the idea of someone running or being on the board for 5 years without an election.
Yes, but that's not what happened. And again, I'm really sorry that it's so confusing. No. He was elected to the board and served 3 years. Right. So he served his 3 years as an elected board member. Now we're talking about another 2 years. So what you're really saying is these would be 2 unelected.
And right, elected 3.
Right.
But Steve, might it be possible for people like me to get another 3 years?
That's a valid point. And if you don't want it, that's a valid point. But unfortunately, Rich, you don't get a vote in this. I don't know how many different times I have to tell you this. You don't get to vote. This is a board decision. You don't like it, change the rules.
Board members, I tend to agree with Jerry's comments that given the temperature in the front of the room amongst the board members, it's take a little more time to work collaboratively and define names. And then make your decision as who you want to appoint. Because right now, it's not sitting wrong. It's your choice. But you know, you don't want it to be your epitaph or your legacy.
Thanks, Dave.
King Crimson. King Crimson.
Yeah, great. Hang on. Yes.
Right after we had the election, let 3 run, there'll be a new board, let them.
Right. It would be great if the bylaws allowed it. They don't. The bylaws do not allow this.
It doesn't say you have to appoint.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't say you have to appoint.
What it says is that we have to appoint, that it can't be an elected position. Now, forever.
You have 3 members, if they're not on.
No, we have 2 members running at this point. We had 3 people who declared their candidacy for the board. We cannot let them run. We've had a resignation. We must fill this resignation by appointment. We don't have any choice in the matter. Right, but the board has to operate. I mean, we've got stuff to do. We have work to do. This isn't just, you don't even show up every month and talk about nonsense like this. So we need the guy. We need him. Steve Carter.
Steve, first I want to apologize for my first outburst. But my frustration is, and I'm not sure that you're getting this. You got two different issues. You could have the election. Everybody understands that. Everybody's trying to communicate to you. Let the election take place. 2 out of the 3 will be elected to the board. The new board, which it says in the bylaws, has the power to appoint. That's their job, but there's no timeline. There's nothing that says you have to this afternoon. Look, there's presidents in this room that have operated with 6 board members for 2 or 3 months until we got enough people that stepped forward so we could make a decision. So I just think at this point, it's been said before, why don't you just let the election take place and then let the new board solicit the community? If there are 3 or 4 people that volunteer, appoint one of them. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else?
It seems most unfortunate for me that he considered resigning under the assumption that the community would appoint him. So maybe maybe fair says he's not the board now.
Who, anybody else? Yes.
If there is a 6-member board, wouldn't you then have the voters present?
There's nothing in the bylaws that says that. Anybody else? Yes.
In view of the fact that Ryan resigned after you were asked to kind of come to the board in January, can't you go back to the community and ask for more volunteers to run?
Not according to, I mean, this isn't, look, I mean, you could, I don't think that is appropriate. I don't think that's gonna happen. What? Insult you? I'm insulting you? My apologies. My apologies. Anybody else? Yes.
Your purpose is to serve us, not to be experimental. How can you look around and feel you're serving us?
Well, first of all, the community isn't here. We represent everybody in this community, all 3,500 or whatever people. Okay, there's some people here today, and they're not happy. And you know, we've seen a lot of them before, and they've been unhappy before. And I understand that this isn't a boy. I'll tell you if I know. But this is not a popularity contest. I'm trying to manage this board. We're trying to run the board and run the community's affairs, the foundation's affairs, the most efficient and best way possible. And so this is actually an internal board problem that we have to deal with, that you guys get a chance to talk about, but it's not like you get a vote. So I'm just trying to make it very clear to everybody. You think I'm not serving the community because I don't agree with you, but what about the rest of the people? So I mean, I've talked to a lot of folks who don't agree with you. And I'm sure everybody else here has talked to folks who do agree with you. And so what do? The way you solve these problems in a community like this or any organization, you have a vote. But we're not going to have a vote on this matter because the bylaws are clear that this is not to be voted on. Now, I understand that because I heard it today, that some people are concerned about a power grab. I'm not really sure what that means. They think we're going to take over Pelican Marsh or something. But I do think that that there's a lot of emotion and hysteria around this issue, which is just not reasonable and not appropriate, not helpful, not wanted. And I would love for everyone to be respectful and to understand that we're doing the best we can up here, and that you guys, you don't like us, fine, vote somebody else.
That's ironic. This is really their whole problem is that we're kind of taking away their chance to vote someone else.
Your problem. Your problem. So listen, this is not, as you know, and you've heard it in 9 different ways, this is not a votable problem. This is not an issue that is going to be solved by a vote by the community. It's going to be solved by a vote by the board. This is how the thing is set up. You don't like it, change it. You know, can't change it today, but you can change it. And I encourage you to all run for the board and to do what you think is best for the community. Mark.
What is the objection for waiting until the election? Refuse Matt's resignation. So, on a board. And he's going to be running for, the only difference is Joe got one last year and he can run for another. And after the election, and then the one person who's out of the, doesn't really re-election, whether it be Nathaniel or Matthew or Joe, the board feels they want to be appoint that person to fill Collins' space.
If we can do that today without the drama of Joe and Nathaniel. Why, you know, if Joe and Nathaniel and Matt all run for the board, and as well, so someone's going to lose, right? Joe and Nathaniel think it's going to be Matt, right? And so, and therefore, I think that the actually I shouldn't say that Nathaniel thinks it's going to be Matt. But
I said hope. I would hope that I would win. I hope that Joe would win. You asked me if I had a preference, and I said, well, I have a preference, but I didn't say I predict.
right. Well, obviously, that's not what I meant. But what I mean to say here is that whoever lost would then be the obvious choice to appoint the board. The obvious choice, not somebody else, not a list that we're going to take, you know, here. But if we had the election, and let's just say, for the sake of argument, Joe and Nathaniel won the election, the obvious choice to appoint the board, and what any other board would do, is appoint the third guy, right?
No, I would disagree. I would say the person you would not want to appoint
I
is the
think
one
that
that
it's
is lost.
exactly what we're talking about doing here today without going through the whole drama and expense and time of the election, because we've got 2 guys who have declared their candidacy and are ready and willing to be appointed to the board.
Okay, can I say something now?
Yes.
Actually, the reason I was appointed to the board, I was told, was because I came in with the next most votes when I ran for the board, because I lost by a few, Jerry. And so I just would like to say that. May I ask, is it possible to refuse Matt's resignation?
No, it's not possible. Refuse Matt's resignation. Yeah, it's not possible. According to the bylaws, he's resigned. It's done. His letter has been sent in. He's resigned.
The board can function with 6 today, function tomorrow with 6. You have the election, you end up with 6, put up a candidate for a nominee for the FCC. You argue until you're blue in the face, 2 years, okay, or a year until the next election, no harm, no foul. There's nothing that says that has to be, the whole thing is, it's all about timing, guys. You know, this has been such a short window, okay, from timing standpoint. If this had been dragged out for 3 weeks and more people knowledgeable what was gonna happen, what wasn't gonna happen, all we're talking about here is the fact that it happened just abruptly. Guy quits Monday, Wednesday, he's back on the scene. Okay, and that just negates our vote.
It doesn't negate your vote.
It negates our vote or it negates our input.
It's a board function. You should know that as well as any, better than anyone.
What is the importance that you have to have it done today? Give me one solid reason why it has to be done today.
Because this is the prescription. This is how. I'm gonna call the question.
We got a
So the
motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second. Daniel's motion, I have second. So now,
Assuming I'm gonna be on board, okay, I say here quietly, this, I've watched what's happened over the course of the last board. You know, after what's been going on over the last 6 months. And I have to tell you, one of the reasons why I stepped up and wanted to be a board member is to make positive change for the community, okay? What I've been watching here is not positive. There's a lot in it. I watched the restaurant being mismanaged. I'm not gonna point any fingers, but I watched board members want to keep that thing alive, $50,000 a month. There was a lot of people in the community that did not want to see that continue. I can tell you that there were comments made as we're going through this process that people wanted to keep it open at all costs. I don't know what the final numbers were, 500,000, would they have been 1 million? I don't know. We couldn't get these people to give us information. It looked shaky. There was only one board member that had the guts to stand up and put a stop to it. I love the place, not because of what they were doing and losing this money, because I'm part of it. Because I went there every day and I like to be part of the community. I was crazy enough, looking back now, I said, you know what? It's a good thing. It's a good thing we stopped it. And I jumped in and volunteered to be on the restaurant committee. Against what I saw was swimming upstream. It seemed that.
How did that work out?
Well, hold on a second. I'm telling you that the time and effort that was put in by a few of the board or a few of the committee members to find the right people, how it worked out, Steve, it worked out very well. But there was also some things that were going on when we were trying to choose the board with this, this proxy vote that went out, that people were, look at the vote on that. That was not what the community wanted.
Can I interrupt you for just a second?
Hold on a second.
Well, because you're not really addressing the motion.
No,
This is
no,
what
but-
you're supposed to
but-
be talking about.
But I'm sitting here listening. If I'm going to be a board member, I would hope that you would take my input, that you would collaborate with me if I'm sitting on one of those seats. And I would want to have a discussion and an open dialogue and not have what seems to be crammed. I mean, when I used to work, I've been on boards, okay? I was on a board of $100 million or $1 billion company. I ran $100 million organization, 40 different offices in 3 countries. I don't know that people know my background. They didn't get a chance to see my background, okay? They didn't get a chance to vote on me. Somehow I slid into the spot. I think I have the qualifications to be on the board. I want to be on the board. I want to make a positive impact. But what I've seen over the last 6 months is this board needs positive change. And what's going on today doesn't look like we're moving in a positive direction. It just doesn't look like it. And what's happened today with the stand-ups and the outbursts and everything else, I mean, I think everybody in the room knows where people are alive. And what I don't like is the continual bickering and fighting and everything. And what I would like to bring is some collaboration and some communication and the things that I brought to a successful business would like to bring to this board to add some positive change in the community. I think you've got to listen to the people, not just in this room, people outside of the community, and get the right person. This doesn't, I would have picked all those words too. This just doesn't look right. It doesn't look right. And if you're going to be left with people complaining for the next 3 years, I don't want to be part of an organization that we got people that are complaining for the next 3 years.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion. So, the motion is, Daniel's motion with my second to appoint Melinda Reed to the vacated seat on the board. All in favor, raise your hands and signify. All opposed? You're abstaining. Okay. All right. This motion does not carry. I think that
May I say something?
Sure.
What are you thinking? My feeling at this point is that we should proceed with just the 5 we have on board now and go with the election. Which has been suggested.
There's no election, there's only 2 candidates.
There are 2.
We only have 2 candidates with 2 openings. There will be no election.
Well, so now, no, we don't do that, right?
No, we can't.
It's too late.
It's too late.
It's too late for this.
Right.
So we would have 2.
We have, okay, here's what would happen if we follow this. We would have 2 candidates for 2 positions on the board. They would be appointed at the annual meeting next month. And then the board would appoint a board member to vacated position for a 2-year term.
Which could be that.
Could be anybody.
Yeah, because it's
Can't
too
because
late.
he's withdrawn. He has withdrawn his candidacy to run. So that means he can't run. He can't run. So we can't.
So by resigning from the board, he actually took himself out of candidacy.
Yes, he did. So,
Yes.
right,
Did 2
right,
things.
that's what we got.
We have a
Ryan
5-person
and
board, and in 1 month, we'll have Joe McCahey join the board, a 6-person, right?
That's right. Um, well, I could.
But then you have 6 members after election. It's gonna be a split vote. We'll never get any place.
Moving forward, we have to have 4-3 votes.
That's a long story. That's great.
Don't think you can do it, and maybe you don't know, I don't know. I mean, Joe thinks you can do it. Joe has done it. I think Melinda's gonna do it. These people have done well like big businesses where you collaborate. It is not like Russia. It's not where you tell people. You have to collaborate.
That's really good.
Okay. I'm going to move to adjourn this meeting, and we will figure out our next step as a board. What comes next? So I move to adjourn. And a second. Second.
Second.
We are adjourned.